Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to another episode of Write with Tracee. One of the things that I talked about when I interviewed David Winters for his book, Exercise Your Faith, is writing with other people and doing what is called collaboration on a book project and working together to finish a book from start to finish. Probably three different ones that he mentioned. He talked about actually ghostwriting for someone by interviewing them and taking their ideas and things that they shared, and by talking with them and chatting with them and then writing chapters for them to review. And he also talked about, just kind of working with someone almost side by side. They were in their office and David was in his office. And so there was kind of this distance and disconnect, but you were still working towards the same project. I recently tried to collaborate with someone, and it was an interesting time. It was an interesting thing to do. It was sort of fun, but I had some little things that I wanted to share that made it somewhat difficult. And the project isn't done, and we haven't finished, and we haven't ever met again, honestly. So I wanted to give you some tips about working on collaboration and really things you think that when you work with someone, they're your friend or they may be your friend. You may get along with them on, all other fronts. But when it's time to work together on a collaborative effort and a similar project, like one project that you work together on, it can bring out all kinds of differences that you have in the way in which you approach something and you get something done. I wanted to go just over a couple of things that I think you should think about when you are deciding whether or not you're going to collaborate with someone for a writing project. And I bring this up first. The scenario is that you would either sit together or come over, and the person would give you ideas and you would write that way, kind of a person in your ear talking to you and telling you ideas, and then you kind of type, or the other person types, whoever the designated typist is, or in a way that you communicate largely over email, where you might do a couple paragraphs or even a whole chapter. You'll send it to the person and they'll either edit it or they will decide to offer comments and feedbacks and suggestions, and then you might change it, or he or she might change it on the other end. So there's lots of different ways to look at it. What matters most is that it's a way that's comfortable for you. So, but you need to think about the type of person you are. I'm a very solitary writer, and probably that's why I wanted to try the collaboration. But there's more than just that. The fact that I'm a solitary writer that kind of interrupted the flow and interrupted the experience and made it not a great working experience. It's not only about your own personality; it's about whether or not the person has experience with writing themselves. If someone is new to the writing process, they really haven't worked out how they approach writing at all. And so if they haven't ever finished their own book projects, or haven't ever written more than a few chapters and just have a bunch of journal entries, that is going to be hard. They may think the process goes faster than it actually does. Think about, personality wise, is this a good fit as far as where we're both at? Not to say that you can't ever work with someone that hasn't written anything, but you'll know pretty quickly if they can be committed to the project, if they can flesh out their ideas, and if they can articulate them in a way that keeps going through the entire process. Because a lot of people have a lot of stops and starts. That's why a lot of people aren't writers, don't publish books and such. And that's okay too. We need readers. Trust me, we need lots of readers. And it's good to recognize if you're just not the type of person to write a book and finish it. But I actually believe there's a story in everybody, when I tell people all the time there's a story inside you, it doesn't mean that you're the person to write the story. It just means that you should find a way to get your story out, even if that means telling it to someone else. So even though I say there's a story in everyone, I don't mean there's an author in everyone. Not everyone is going to be able to sit down and put out a story, several thousand words, and make it sound good and logical and important, and then be able to publish and really do all the work that comes along with publishing, finding an editor and just going through all the process. So be on the same page with this person as far as what are you writing? What genre is it? How does the plot go? What is the structure? What's the length of the book? The characters, and do you have the same ideals and ideology? One of the downturns about working with someone that I wanted to try this new relationship and do the book was that I didn't want to write horror. That wasn't what they told me that it was going to be at first. And we started writing, but then it kind of took this downturn. It was very scary, very different, and something that I had never approached. So the problem wasn't just with the other person, it was with me too, that I didn't really want to visit. Never written a horror in my life. I don't like horrors. I don't like being scared. And so I didn't want to think about that and think about these characters going through horrifying situations. And so, a secondary tip of being on the same page is just being comfortable enough to say no. I almost went through with the project. I was like, challenge yourself, do something different. But then I was like, would I ever put my name on this really? Would I ever want to? Of course, if you like horror, great. Sign up to work with Jordan Peele. But I just do not want to think about horror and do that and, go down that road, very dark road that was things were turning into me. And the other thing was that I don't know if it was even the horror. I know I don't want to do horror, but it was also going to have maybe some things in there that were kind of more sexual than I wanted to be. I know horror and those kinds of scenes don't really go together, but you'd be surprised. I mean, can be a lot of deviation and going down these dark roads as people come up with new things that they want to write. And so some of those themes just made me uncomfortable, and I did not want to go down there. So I have to be honest that that was one deterrence as far as what was going down. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. It's better to do it now at the beginning than to get, several hundred pages into the work and be like, ah, I can't do this. It's one thing to challenge yourself, but it's a different thing to go down a road for things that make you uncomfortable. So that's totally not okay. And you have to be willing, open, and honest in order to share that that's how you feel. Secondly, it's just a level of interest and commitment and your involvement. I think that as the person I was working with saw that writing is a very slow process, you kind of have to fix the dialogue. You don't just throw up some dialogue, and just be done. There's descriptive elements, there's character transitions, there's building the character and who they are. There's some extraneous things that need to happen and need to occur just besides the character talking to other characters. What does the space that they're in look like? Where should be the best place for the scene to take place? How many scenes are in this chapter? And yes, you should just go and write as much and as long as you can. But if you try to do some of that figuring out early on, it'll be much less editing headache for you to tackle. I think about my work in scenes, and so I think about putting together the scene. I know where it happens, I know who is in the scene, and I know what the revelation should be as before the scene ends. And so, really, a book is just stringing together, a fiction book is just stringing together different scenes and what those are going to be. Working with someone that has never, thought about a book in the different types of way people write it, either a scene or an idea, means that there's no real formulation of concrete ideas and ways to get the book down. It's just kind of a jumbled mess in a person's head. You may have worked it out and you may have seen the entire book in your head, but until you really sit down where the logistics happen, you just have a series of things and somehow people get to the end and this is what happens and then that happened. But when you really start to put people on the page and see them interact with each other, more problems and things that you need to fix and work out will become apparent to you. And so you need to address those as you go along, or else the whole story will fall apart. So ensuring that your partner is committed to seeing it through, both of you, before you get started, willing to stick through the hard times when things get hard and things get bumpy, or there's a setback, somebody didn't write their chapters, or somebody didn't look at, review, and give feedback on what was submitted to the other partner, can be a real problem. And so if you're not willing to sit down and say, this is what we're going to do, I'm going to send stuff to you, you edit, you look at it, you give feedback and send it back to me, and then we'll keep going through each chapter like that. If that's not going to be the case, then that probably isn't a good fit for you to collaborate with. Is communication and workloads. I mentioned just a moment ago that you want to get back the stuff that you sent to the person in a timely manner. But how are you going to do that? Will you do it through a Google document or other kind of document, Evernote, or work on any other app where you can share notes with other teams and other people? Will you just send it as an attachment in an email, part of a Word document, and then you'll keep most of everything in a larger Word document and just send a chapter at a time? How often will you do this? Will you send a chapter once, a week, and the person has 7 days to turn it around? Are you going to have phone calls or, meetings online where you can see each other and really understand what the other person is saying? Or are you just going to work solely via email because you both are super busy? You may have families and you may have other obligations that don't permit you to communicate as often through a teleconference or a platform where you can see each other, such as Zoom, which is what I use for my videos. How are you going to show that you are encouraging and offering good feedback and you're excited about the writing that has been received? If you think about, writing where it's such an isolating venture, sometimes my editor, for instance, makes smiley faces in the margins or even on the track changes that she uses to fix my work. Those little things like give me the warm and fuzzies sometimes. And so, are you going to be able to do that for your partner that you're writing with? And you also need to let your partner know, do you respond well to that? Do you really not care for anybody to say anything like, oh, this is good, and this is a really strong passage, and oh, I really like that part that you put in? Or do you just kind of go through the whole thing very militantly, like, oh, good, thanks, okay, next, good, that was good, yeah, next. And just kind of this, you have to respond in a way, and you have to want to receive a response in a way that kind of gives you a little boost and helps you press on to keep going in the book. It's really important that you be honest, because if you don't tell a person what you need, this is a partnership situation. And as a partnership, you want to be able to communicate with your partner that this works, this is great. Tell them how you need to be treated and how you need to hear about the work and how it's going. So if you can imagine, if you sent something to your partner And she said everything was good, but that last line was such trash. How would you feel about that? Is that shocking? Do you want to know the truth so bluntly? Or do you want to kind of ease into, well, I think this sentence doesn't sound that great, but here's how I think we can clean it up, as opposed to that was trash. We really have to think about working relationships on something that really is very personal, how we're going to encourage each other and keep working towards that. This is a long-term relationship. And if anything, if all the feedback that comes back is that's trash, then the relationship probably won't last that long. On the other side is that you may like that. You may talk to the person in that manner and they may talk to you in that manner. Very no nonsense, no fluffy, no warm and fuzzies, and that's fine. It's just communicate that at the beginning so nobody is surprised or disappointed or hurt in the process. Next is all about ego. I was in a writers group, which I've mentioned on this platform, and I mentioned that I was the only one who had a first published book in the group, and it was about 4 of us, maybe 5 of us, ladies, all women, and it was really kind of difficult because sometimes someone was looking to me as a published author to give them extra feedback or, say, well, how did you do it? I have no problem with that. It was just that there were 4 other people looking towards me for that very same thing. I'm in a group now where 2 of us are published and 2 of us are not published. And it's such a better balance of both knowledge and information and know-how. And also, more information is actually available. Both of us, or actually all 4 of us, belong to the same writing organization. And so we're able to get the same information. Sometimes in that first group in my 20s, they weren't necessarily in a writers group, and so I would be in a writers group and just bring information back to them, which was fine. But one thing I just wanted to make sure is that they didn't inflate my ability to help them, do something that I had done, and then it not work out in the way that they wanted or had intended. And the other thing was that I didn't enter the field of writing through the traditional way. I won a contest, which is a little bit unconventional, a little bit different. Now you can still do that, but I didn't just go and get an agent and then the agent got me a deal. I went on my own, saw an opening for a wonderful contest, and I actually won. And that's how I started my writing career, which I talk about a lot in all my interviews if you want to listen to one. So just make sure that you don't inflate the experience or the knowledge of yourself if you are already writing books and have published them, and if your partner is not. And the same goes for whoever has a better rank. If you both are published, you're both published, and that's that. That's great. You both bring something unique and wonderful to the table, and it's important to recognize both of your contributions in the different writing fields that you're in, and one person not being more intrigued and more special than the other person. Next is just the structure. I mentioned that, you have how you communicate. You're going to send emails or you're going to meet on Zoom or you're going to talk collaboratively once a week through some kind of phone conference about different things, or you're going to meet, every like once a month and talk about the work that you've been doing and how are things going. Structure is more about your writing time and the time that you're going to put towards the talking. So are you going to write on the evenings and weekends? When should the person kind of leave you alone and know that you are writing and that you are working on the project and not bug you, and not send you, thousands of emails about this and that and inserting this and kind of, sending you an email that says, hey, don't do this before you look at my email. That would be kind of annoying. And plus it would always interrupt the flow of what you're writing. I think people really underestimate how much you can be in the zone and how the words are coming to you so strongly only to have constant dings on your phone or your computer about, from the writer who's excited, who may be in their own zone, but can't necessarily do their zone alone. It has to constantly bug you about what you're doing and inserting something they've written into your masterpiece. What is most important is that you just kind of wait your turn, work on the project as it is, and then you're going to submit things at the timetable and the schedule that you both said was going to be doable for you. So really have some structure for writing time, for talking time, writing separately or together. Maybe you do have a session of 4 hours and you write separately for a little while, and then you write collaboratively together in the same coffee shop or your home office or what have you, library, whatever. And then you come together and kind of share what you worked on and what you came up with. You both share and honor your commitments, and you also have open and honest communication about the difficulties you're having completing a portion of the work. There is nothing worse than for one partner to totally adhere to all the rules and the ground rules that have been set, and then someone else to kind of lag and say, well, I had this to work on, and oh, this happened. It's fine for things to happen. It's fine for you to be in a setback, to have a family emergency, but you still should communicate that nothing got done this week. I didn't finish reading your submission, and I don't have anything to share because of A, B, and C. If you can share that early on, the other person is not frantically writing and writing for their part, and knows that they can maybe take a little break, or at least know that you won't be getting things back to them as soon as you promised or as soon as you guys had previously agreed to. And that could be really important to do, because nobody wants to feel as if someone else takes a break whenever they want to, and the other person just continues to write while you're off doing whatever. Um, Hopefully your partner does realize that things happen, especially if you have young children or you have elderly parents or any number of things that occur to set you back, and the person will understand that. But if you just go away for a while and you don't have any communication about what is happening, then that's a different story, and that can cause, anger and frustration between the both of you. The last tip is to simply celebrate your wins along the way and have fun. When you have reached maybe a certain word count that you both agree on, maybe it's 10,000 words, maybe it's 25,000 words, or even 5,000 words between the two of you, and everything is going good and the story looks really promising, or whatever you're working on looks promising, how about a little celebratory lunch? Or dinner or what have you, or some kind of shared whatever are things that you like to do. Take time out for those things, and to really understand that those celebrations, however little they are or even big, will only bolster your propulsion to the end. So those celebrations along the way will only boost your self-esteem, your ability to feel like you can keep going, and to also honor that you are working on something awesome and that it's going to be spectacular once you are through. But you commit to not talking too much about the work during those celebrations, because you really want to focus on the fact that you made progress, that you are still together for one thing, and that you have a long road ahead, but at least you're getting to different points in the process and you're moving forward. So remember that always, to celebrate your wins along the way together. And then have fun. Should be a fun process. It should be something that you are looking forward to. There are parts of the process that may seem a little taxing to you, but for the most part, you're here to have fun. You're here to, have another wonderful entry into the marketplace as far as a collaborative thing. There's nothing like birthing something that's wonderful, and both of you get to have your name on it, which is actually something that I didn't mention that I forgot. Said to make sure that you're on the same page. And that includes whose name is going to go on the book. So I neglected to mention that. Be sure that you know whose name is going to go where. Is somebody's name bigger than the other? Are they both the same? Does it say the main author's name who did most of the writing, and then the other person, maybe they're the editor? So when the person may think, I'm not the editor, I think I contributed a lot to this book, and so my name should be in the same font, the same bold type, and the same font size as yours. So just keep that in mind, that you'll want to know. That's another part of being on the same page, is who's going to take the visual credit for this project. And is that going to be one of you over the other, or both of you? And when all else fails, you can put your names in alphabetical order, or put whoever's name is longer on the bottom just for a visual appearance. That'll be something to think about for your book cover. But you want to get that straight right now, just in case people have expectations that they didn't expect. And now they are surprised and a little angry about what has occurred. I hope that whatever partnership you're going to enter in is going to be an awesome one. I encourage you to create an agreement of some sort to that effect, to make sure that everything is spelled out. And honestly, if everyone is buying into this being a real project, a real partnership, both parties, you and the partner, should agree that, no matter what, we should still outline who's going to do what and have some kind of legally binding agreement. Because at the end, this is a product. And so you don't want anyone to be able to say, well, you didn't have an agreement, so I'm taking all the credit, and I know all the booksellers and all the people in my list of contacts, and I know who should do what, and I'm ready to move forward with the book, and your name is going to be a 10-point size font compared to my 20-point font name on the front. And, or I will just leave you off altogether if you continue to harass me or what have you. You do not want those kinds of situations. You can go to any kind of lawyer. You want to probably talk to someone, a copyright lawyer, or you could do something on one of the lawyer sites where you pay a fee to create a contract and just have it looked at by somebody, which will cut down on your costs. But those are the things that you really need to think of, and those will ensure that everybody is covered. You don't want to put so much time and energy into a project and then have a legal battle at the end of that project, which can stall it and keep it from seeing the light of day and being published. I hope these tips have been helpful to you. I will see you next time, and thanks so much for joining me. Take care.